Anahuac. 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 Anahuac.
we get all the high jumpers. They think they can jump. We're going to see who can top the top of the backboard. Pasadena ain't never seen this before now. We're going to see who's going to the top and join the GOAT as the legend of the highest jumper in the United States or in the world. The top of the backboard, ladies and gentlemen, is 13 feet.
Now, let me tell you one thing. Big Doug is the highest jumper in the world, and we have proof.
I'm one of the high flyers in the city, and you know, I didn't know they're gonna pull the stick out for the jump test, but I just always use that as an opportunity to show people I'm the high flyer of Pasadena.
Let's go to 12-2. Moving up, 12-2. Look where you're at. Whoa, look how high that is, y'all. Come on. Pasadena, come on now. 12-2. Come on. Look how high that is on the backboard. Get up there. Give me some keep it, y'all. The record is 12-8 from Buddha. Buddha, his name was Anthony Fredericks. He passed away about 5 years ago. He was a Venice pro, played for the Indiana Pacers. The record was 12-8. We're going to go to 12-9 and see if you can break the record. We're going to go to 12-9 and then we're moving up higher. 12-9, y'all. Ain't nobody jumped 12-9 anywhere except the GOAT, and he took 50 cent pieces off the backboard. Let's see if you can get this, y'all. 12-9 to break the record. Then we're going to see who's going to the top, y'all. His whole body is on this rim. Y'all say, he can fly. Here we go.
It's something in the water from Pasadena.
That's it right there, y'all. That's the top. That's it, y'all. That's it. That's it. That's it, y'all. We already got the record. Let's go. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Here it goes. Here it goes.
Big Doug Thomas, touched 13 feet, was acting a fool in the gym, everything was going outrageous.
This brother had leaps. This brother jumped over 13 feet. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's like 2 people. He's jumping over 2 people. Reverse. And this guy was just something amazing me. That was one of the most biggest things that I've seen thus far that was going down.
Crazy out here, man. Man, it's just natural. It's just natural, bro. It's just natural, bro. It's all good, man. Right on, man.
And that was one of the most exciting things that I've seen. And I've been coming to the tournament since the early 80s with my father. And that to the top contest stands out in my mind because we had a guy jump to the top of the backboard. And that was the first time we'd ever seen somebody actually jump and hit the bell on the top of the backboard. We've been doing this for maybe 20 years or so, and we finally had somebody hit the top of the bell, and the crowd went crazy.
That was crazy. Hey, KCAL, ABC News, NBC, CBS, CNN, ESPN, go see the tape.
And just got the top of the backboard with no problem. That's my boy Doug, the highest jumping man in the world. One leg, man. Hey, 13 feet. Put it on YouTube. Put it on YouTube.
We're not talking about swimming when we say 13 feet.
That's right.
What's up, man?
As you can see, the place is ecstatic. The big fella jumped 13 feet in the air, broke the world record. This is how we do it in Pasadena. This is how Sick would do it. Brian Hicks, contributing from the police department. Every sponsor is K-Day. This is how we do it. I'm your boy DB.
Yeah, I didn't know 12-9 was the record, but you know, after playing one half of a game, I think I could have got higher than 13, but you know, 13 is top of the backboard, so I just left it at that. And so in the future can tell I might show higher, so it feels pretty good right now. And I feel real good about that. My community got a chance to see it, so I think I did. It's a real good milestone on my community that you know, we got one of the highest jumpers in the world in Pasadena, so I feel real good about it.
Greetings to my loved ones, the melanations known as the copper-colored races, in shades of ebony, chocolate, mahogany, caramel to butter pecan. It's the medicine man. And greetings to a selection of another complexion who seek truth. All praises to the Most High, the creative creators, the framer and the shaper of all. I've had time over this winter break to do a little research and catch up on some things, and got a few videos that I've watched and some information that I share in a little bit that I want to touch on. But first, let me discuss something that we don't apply a lot, and that's common sense. I want you to go ahead and just really look at what the definition of it is. Of course, we all know that this means good sense and sound judgment in practical matters, of course. But what I want to emphasize is the shrewdness, wisdom, and insight. These are inherent qualities that a lot of us don't tap into. And it's very easy for us to overanalyze or overthink a lot of situations, when a lot of times all you have to use is common sense. When I looked up the definition of common sense, I noticed that it was also a title of a pamphlet written by Thomas Paine in 1775. It was a pamphlet that was advocating independence from Great Britain to the people in the 13 colonies. Written in a clear and persuasive prose, Paine marshaled moral and political arguments to encourage common people in the colonies to fight for egalitarian government. Now, peep the irony. Let's see here. Egalitarian government. Definition of egalitarianism. A belief in human equality, especially with respect to social, political, and economic affairs. A social philosophy advocating the removal of inequalities among people. Isn't that ironic? So this was a pamphlet that was put out by Thomas Paine called Common Sense. There was equality among the people, trying to remove the inequalities. I wonder how would that fare in today's society. Anyway, I digress. Let me go ahead and go to this right here. Check this out. These are Americans. It says here the original melanated civilizations of Mexico. Or should we say Anahuac, the original name of the land. These were Anahuacans, or the original Anahuacans, prior to it becoming Mexico. And it became Mexico when the tribe of the Mexicas from Mongolia invaded the territory and conquered and claimed the land and named it after themselves. And today it's called Mexico, after the Mexicas, who were a Mongol tribe, one of 7 that came here in the 13th century. Anahuac. This is the name of what we call Mexico today. Let's take a look at what Anahuac is. So I looked up Anahuac and I'm looking at the root. And I see Anaha, which is the root. As you can see, the origin is Indian Sanskrit. So we know that it's Sanskrit or Hindu is the origin. Now let's see if we can find some meaning for it. I'll look it up here in the Sanskrit dictionary. And so according to the Sanskrit dictionary or Hindu, it originally meant breathing freely, healthy, and well. So the people of this land, or by definition, were breathing freely, healthy, and well. Now, as you can see, Anaha, when it's translated into English, is on. So what I want people to understand is that our ancestors, when they spoke their languages, it was a tonal language. They spoke in tones. So Anaha, they put emphasis, enunciation on the words. So when you translate it into English, it's just on. So you get Anaha, in English is on. You see how much is lost? This is why I say that this English language is like a curse, it's a spell. It's stripped of a lot of the original meanings and a lot of the original tones of the languages. It's stripped it away. So now you have on, which originally was Anaha. And interesting, I looked at from the origin of Hindu, it also translates from Mare. And when I looked up these people, the Mare people, the Maori people, I noticed that they are considered an indigenous Polynesian people of New Zealand. And they were originated with settlers from eastern Polynesia who arrived in New Zealand in several waves of canoe voyages sometime between 1250 and 1300. Now, the irony of this, or should I say connecting the dots or following the breadcrumbs, is same time, same period, same era, the Mongol tribes started invading the Americas, right at the same time. And so I'm one of those people, I like to look at people. I'm a people watcher. I've been studying faces and phenotypes for years. And when you look at images of the Maori people, you can see that they have similarities, a lot of similarities to Siberian people. Here's the Madi people, and these are Siberian people. So, it's not a coincidence that 7 tribes of these people from this region invaded the Americas in the 13th century. And it just so happened at the same time, the Made people from Polynesia, or so they say were indigenous to Polynesia. They started coming in several waves of canoe voyages between the same time. Okay, interesting. So, hold that thought. So, I wanted to go ahead, well, we know that now that Anahuac is sacred, is breathing freely and well. Alright, so Anahuac is breathing freely and well. Let's look at the suffix. Okay, well, we know that AC as a suffix is pertaining to or similar to. Okay, so keep that in mind. Pertaining to and similar to. And when we look at, let's see what they say about Wak. It says that it is dry and withered. So Wak means dried and withered. So Anahuac and Wak together means breathing freely, healthy and well, and a, dried and withered location, which made me stop thinking. So I was like, let me look up Mexico. And lo and behold, when I did, I realized that they said that the Rio Grande is drying up. So I looked at this little video for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. I look at the terrain. I'm like, wow, it is drying up. I'm like, look at how, just desolate certain areas are. So, which kind of puts it all together. Like, okay, well, now I understand that they were living freely and well, but they were living in a land that was drying up. Kind of put you, give you some, I guess, some insight and some information on the topography of the location. But you had the suffix of wak, which means dried and withered. You put it with Anahuac, which in sacred means breathing freely, healthy, and well. So you put 2 and 2 together. When you do, you begin to get an idea of locations. So right now I want to go ahead and touch on something that I had heard over the break, actually. And I want to give a big shout out to Brother Lex Will, Brother Otis, and Brother Vincent. I hear you guys. I've been listening and I've been watching. And I also want to give a big shout out to Brother UB News. And piecing the information together to give us an idea and some insight on location, some of the geography and topography of some of these events. I want to show you something in the book of Joshua. But first, let me go ahead and set it up by letting you guys know I'm going to go to chapter 16. And this is dealing with the allotment, that were given to the tribes that were east of the springs of Jericho. And they went up from there through the desert into the hill country of Bethel. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down in chapter 16, and I want to go down, maybe let's start in verse 8, where it says, the border went out from Tapuyua westward unto the river Kana, and goes out thereof where at the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim by their families. And the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. And they drove not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelled among the Ephraimites until this day and served under tribute. Let's look at that again. It says that when they came in, they drove not out the Canaanites that dwelled in Gezer, but that the Canaanites dwelled among the Ephraimites until this day and served under tribute. So that made me think, like, Ephraimites, who are they? So I went to look up the tribe of Ephraim. And so went to the images. And what struck me was, boom. I'm like, wait a minute. These are Ephraimites? Or are these Ephraimites? Is that an Ephraimite? Or are these Ephraimites? Somebody is playing imposter, and somebody basically is got a hidden identity. Is this guy the Ephraimite? Or are these guys Ephraimites? Well, I can tell you this. We know where these guys come from. And as you see that, basically in Russia is the post states. So we know that these guys are part of basically the tribes that were of the Alemanni, Gog and Magog. So go back. I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward and to chapter 17 here. Let me see. Scroll down. It was something else that caught my eye. I mean, I would like to read it all, but I don't want to butcher it up. I mean, these names, these locations, and, you know, I'm coming to the understanding that a lot of these names are actually names of people who have settled in certain areas, and these became those lands. So when you can decipher a name, it pretty much gives you an origin, and it kind of ties you to that land. And this is what we're trying to do. So I want to go and let's start here right around, I guess, on verse 12, where it says, we're in chapter 17 in Joshua, verse 12. It says, yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. Yet it came to pass, when the children of Israel were waxing strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not utterly drive them out. And the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing I am a great people, for as much as the Lord hath blessed me hereto? And Joshua answered them, if thou be a great people, then get thee up the wood country, and cut down for thyself there in the land of the Possessorites and the giants, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. So we understand that where they are right now is not a large location for the accommodation. And Joshua was like, well, if you are a great people, then go on up there in that wood country where them giants live at and clear out the land for yourself. Go ahead and create you some more space. Now, to tie this all together to what they're dealing with, we can go back up to verse 5. This is something that Brother Lex had touched on one of his lessons. It said and there fell 10 portions to Manasseh beside the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side of Jordan. Now, peep this. This is something that Brother Lex had touched on. Bashan, Lysoth, first mentioned in Genesis 14:5, where it said that and his confederates smote the Rephaim and Astarthoth, where King Og, the king of Bashan, had his residence. So we know that this is around the same area where Og, the king of Bashan, had residence. Okay. So, let me scroll to the next chapter right quick, and we want to touch on something that really caught my eye. I just started Joshua 18. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there. And the land was subdued before them. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not received their inheritance. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, How long are ye slack to go to possess the land, which the Lord God of your fathers hath given you? Give out from among you 3 men for each tribe, and I will send them, and they shall rise and go through the land, and describe it according to the inheritance of them. And they shall come again to me, and they shall divide it into 7 parts. So, as you can see, they were now allotting the lands to the tribes that didn't have received their inheritance yet. And so, in doing so, they divided up in 7 parts. But what struck me was the 7 tribes. And I'm like, okay, 7 tribes in the book. But then I'm like, okay, 7 tribes of the Mongols came over and conquered our land. I'm like, coincidence? Okay. Just wanted to touch on that and bring that out. And it was another part that I wanted to bring out. I believe it's in the next chapter. Oh, no, hold on. Is it in here? Yeah, it's in the next chapter. So let me scroll forward to chapter 19, where he's talking about Simeon. So as you can see, they're breaking it up. Now, keep in mind, now, all of these names, if we can break down to the roots, we can get an origin, and we can get the land. And what struck me out as I was reading this, it broke down to this, just scroll down to verse, starting 16. This is the inheritance of the children of Zebulun, according to their families, these cities with their villages. And the 4th lot came out to Ishkar, for the children of Ishkar, according to their families. And the border was toward Jezreel, Cushloth, and Shinon, and Hephron, and Shinon, and Anahuac.
Anahuac.
Y'all see what I'm saying? Okay. So, Ishkar, Anahuac. Let me look up Ishkar. Ishkar people. Let's look at them. Okay. First thing pops up is what? The descendants of the Gog and Magog, the tribes of the Mongols that came over here. But then, lo and behold, hidden in the mix is a real descendant of Ishkar. A real descendant of Ishkar. And guess what? It's tied to what land?
Anahuac.
Anahuac. Coincidence? No, I just went over the definition. We went over the suffix. We went over pretty much the land. Thanks to, some of the information Brother Lex shared, Brother UB News and shared. It's kind of put the locale, the geography, the topography, meaning, what's been built on it, the landscaping. Then when you're reading a lot of these destinations, these locations, these names, these cities, get to the root. It's not a coincidence that Anahuac, which is actually Anahuac, is tied to the tribe of Issachar. It's not a coincidence. It's common sense. When you use it, it's common sense, literally. So now I want to go ahead and fast forward right quick. I got something interesting out of the Anahuac or Mexican, and the Mexicans are ancient and modern. It's got some true spiel in here. Let me see if I can find something real quick. I think you guys really trip you out just like it did me. I'm like, wow, there's nothing that I didn't know, but just confirmation. Okay, I think it was on this. It's a PDF, online PDF. You can go ahead and get it. and you can read some of this truth, and you can kind of piece the pieces together just like I'm trying to do, and you can see a lot that we've not been told with research, due diligence. Us, you know, like my grandmother always say, 2, 3 heads better than one. So when we all put our heads together, you see what happens. Okay, look, I'm reading out on page 16. It says that one possible article of export we examine as closely as opportunities would allow, namely the Indian inhabitants, that they are, in every respect, the right article for trade. Brown-skinned and capable of defending themselves, strong, healthy, and industrious. And the creeks and mangrove swamps of Cuba, only 3 days sail off, the plantations and mines that want 100,000 men to bring them into full work, and swallow Aborigines, Chinese, and Negroes indifferently, meaning it don't even matter. Anything that has a dark skin and can be made to work would take those Yakutus in any quantity. Yakutus is people from Yucatan. And pay well for them. And once on the sugar estate or down the line, when these sham registers are regularly made out, and that the governor has had his ounce of gold, a piece for passing them and their subordinates their respective rights, who shall get them out again or even bind them. Meaning, you know, once you go ahead and get them out of here, you disperse them, and who gonna find them? Who gonna know? That just caught me. Boom, it just stopped me in my track like, whoa. So my question is, if these people were being enslaved, and it says right here, the people from Yucatan, and they were brown skinned, is describing what color it was. And they basically were incapable of defending themselves, of course, against heavy weaponry. When you coming in with muskets and dogs, going against arrows and bows, you know, it's a no-brainer. But just the fact that they had pointed out how healthy and strong and industrious
Hey, let's get these people.
we can disperse them, and, you know, who would know? So this is some interesting stuff. I just, you know, wanted to touch on that. Now, you know, something that you guys can look into yourself. But this brings back to, you know, the points of common sense. Okay, so we see that we have the people that's inhabiting the country as we speak now, looking a lot like this. And they calling themselves indigenous and native to this land. And when you understand, you know, the history behind it, when you understand who the real original people were and what they look like, and they even describes it. You know, this is not me saying this. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading out of the Anahuac or Mexican and Mexicans, ancient and modern. I'm reading out of the history book. You know, so they're telling the truth. They're saying these people were brown skinned. You know, saying which in today's, you know, classification will be considered black or the better misnomer of African American. That makes sense. So brought me to this point. I'm like, okay, now if these people came from Siberia, we know they came from Siberia according to the historical researchers. What are the indigenous crops of Siberia? Because I see a lot of pictures of what you would call propaganda of them basically looking like they are the cultivators of maize. Well, let's look at, let's see here. How about you check out some Aztec corn? Look at the image of that. See what I'm talking about. Oh, here's a picture of an Aztec with maize. Here we go. We got a picture of the Aztecs with maize. Looking at these pictures, you would think that, oh, these people, you know, they've been around this all their life. They know maize, you know, they know how to grow it and cultivate it. And, oh, these are people responsible for getting all different types of variations of corn, and they done cultivated so much that bull. These people know not. They knew nothing until the 13th century about this crop. Nothing. This is what they know. These are the images of Siberia. This is what they know. This is what they come from. From the plains, from the steppes of Siberia. These are the crops that they knew. Corn doesn't grow here. Wheat, wheat and barley and cabbage, peas, you know, buckwheat. These people never saw this until they came here. They never saw these variations. Let me show you this. Look. Right here. Yes, Christopher Columbus mentions corn in his journal, saying it was well tasted, baked and dried, and made into flour. He later takes corn back with him to Spain, where it is well spread throughout Europe. So that lets you know right there that the Indo-Europeans that came here, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, or should I say the tribes of the Suevi and the Visigoths that came here, they knew nothing about no corn. So we got, where's she at? Where you at, beautiful? With yourself. Don't be hiding from me. Come here. Where you at? Just saw you. I went right by you, didn't I? There you go. There she is. Look at her. Cholula-style female figure representing the corn goddess Chicomialcotl, holding the sun's rays. Now, here you got the Chikamika tribe from Mongolia. They didn't know nothing about this. These are the people who cultivated this corn. These are the people who made, you know, these different variations of corn. These are the people who came, assimilated, and then usurped and took over. And now, basically, they assuming as if they are the people of the land when we know that they're not. According to their DNA, even their DNA traces them back to their land of origin, which is Siberia, the steppes of the Caucasus. So, when you know these facts and you know that they came over here in ships like this, 10 times the size of the ones that Columbus and his crews came over in. This is what they were coming over here in. And you can see basically who these people are and where they come from. Just by looking at the people today that are basically, should I say, standing in, or the proxy that they have. The proxy. So I just wanted to touch on that so you guys can understand that, you know, it's a lot of things in history that's not been told. There's a lot of history that's been hidden, a lot of history that's been concealed because they don't want us to know that a lot of what they've been telling us is a lie. I mean, once you realize that a lot of, you know, what's going on, and the origins of it, and then you get down to the bottom of it, you see all what's been done and all what's being done continuously to keep it, you know, status quo. Okay. And we also got to take into account and understand that a lot of our ancestors also took on some of their rituals and some of the things, their cultures that they brought, and they took a part, you know, was a part of that. So that's another stake in the, you know, I guess you could say, in our demise as a people. When you let another group of people come over and pretty much assimilate everything that you've done. Now, who else would be making black corn but, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's just common sense to me. I'm like, do you honestly think that these people made black corn? Really? They made black corn. I'm like, I'm just using common sense. When we already know that these are the crops from which they came. This is what they know. This is their habitation. Historically, what they, you know, have the grains of the lands that they've come from. So, knowing that, you know what it is. It's cultural assimilation. That means that a group came over and they learned someone else's group's language or culture and they resembled it. Cultural assimilation is a process by which a minority group or a culture comes to resemble those of a dominant group. So when they came here, of course, the ancestors, the antediluvians that were living here in the Americas, those were the dominant groups. And they basically assimilated or learned their ways, their customs and traditions, and mimicked them. And they're still doing it to this day. I want to bring out another point before I get out of here. Something that kind of it irks me. I'm sounding like my granny now. It irks me. But I want you guys to get a understanding of something, or overstanding, should I say, of something that's been going on. And I'm a type of seeker of truth and knowledge that when I find out things, I know that we are visual people. I know we're expressive people. So I try to illustrate best I can And a lot of times I use what they call memes. Now, the knock on memes is when you having some type of debate and you use a meme, oh, you use a meme, this, that, like it's like there's no credit or there's nothing that a meme has of any substance that can, be used. And I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to show you the definition of what meme is, because some of y'all don't even read. I mean, if you did, you was just you'd be quiet because you sound ignorant. And I said ignorant. Okay. So, as you can see, the original meaning of meme, an element of a cultural system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation. So, what I am sharing facts and truth on a meme. It behooves you to research what's on the meme and stop trying to make fun of the facts and the truth. Y'all stuck on the humorous image, the video, basically the dumbed down version that they give you of the word. I look at the etymology of words. And I research. And so when somebody says, oh, this is what you got on a meme, oh, that's a lie, that's bogus, or that's, okay. Well, to me, that shows your ignorance because you don't even take the time to research the information and truth that's on the meme. That's my point. So I want to just say that, share that information because I'm on Facebook and, I share a lot of information. I'm on, also on Instagram. I share a lot of pictures, a lot of information, a lot of memes. And on that note, I wanted to give a big shout out to, some of the brothers, who in the struggle with me. And I feel you. And I give a shout out to Ab, the legend, 1000 Go Ahead, Carusium, Natural by Law, and African Americans Ain't African, because they put out a lot of memes, just like myself, with truth on them. People, if you go ahead and research what's on the meme, you will see that it's truth. This particular one right here is basically a quote from Professor Rafinescu, who in the 1800s went through North, Central, and South America, and he saw eyewitness accounts. This is what he wrote, what he saw. So when you share this information on a meme, it shouldn't depreciate the value of the truth because it's on a meme. Because nowadays, everybody put ignorant of some BS or, some nonsense on memes and, it's laughable. Okay, well, we have to basically differentiate for fun and what's for real. So, as I said earlier, we as a visual people gotta see. See it is believing. Tried to give us a visual, and so did these brothers, so I just wanted to go ahead and touch on that and bring that out and clear that up. I get a lot of people want to argue up and down about the information on the meme and don't take the time to go ahead and research the information or the facts that's on the meme to verify that. No, but just because it's on the meme it don't mean nothing. It's fake. It's okay. Those not taking the time to look into it and verify the information, it just shows the level of your intelligence. That's all. That's it. Again, like I said, a lot of this is just common sense. Start applying it. Okay, so again, I wanted to go ahead and give out some love to my subscribers. You know, I try to share as much as I can when I can. Truth be told, I wish I could just do this full time. I just wish I could just, engulf myself into it. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm just scraping the surface. I mean, I know I can get deeper. Just, there's not enough time in the day, and you got to pay the bills, right? Okay, so, but having said that, I just wanted to let you guys know also that we got some new things coming up for the new year, 2019. We got some new projects in place. Been sitting with some of my family, and we done put our heads together, and we want to go ahead and start utilizing some of our talents. And hopefully, you guys will be receptive to it and will support us in that endeavor. If you guys got ideas or whatever, simply email me at nucleusbeats@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the channel and the presentations, please do. For any artists out there that's spitting truth, hit me up, nucleusbeats@gmail.com. Go to the website, nucleusbeats.com. Check out some of the tracks. A lot of times what I do a lot of soundtracks. I do a lot of cinematic things of that nature, but pretty much I can do it all. Editing or any production, as you can see, that's something that we also do. So, I mean, we're trying to offer our services to our brothers and sisters, to the community, so if you guys are interested, we can make it happen. Again, I want to end by saying all praises to the Most High, the creator of creators, the framer and the shaper of all. Heya, heya. And I guess I will plant you guys now, and I'll dig you later. So you take it easy, Greasy, and don't slip too fast.
Resistance is useless. I will dominate. Victory is mine. There is no way out. Who will save you now? Bow down before me.
Scientists today can tell precisely when they arrived and from where. All native peoples in South and North America belong to a racial type known as Mongoloid. They're descended from the ancient peoples of Siberia.
We've already talked about the Aztec civilization in several videos, but what we're going to focus on in this video is the Aztec Empire, which shouldn't be confused with the Aztec civilization. The civilization is referring to the broader groups of people over hundreds of years, but the Aztec Empire is a very specific entity that formed in the 100 years before Spanish colonization. What you see here is a zoomed-in version of what today would be southern Mexico and right over here on the globe. And you can see many city-states formed here. A city-state is a city that is also considers itself a state that has its own political organization, its own way of functioning. It's not dependent on any other government forms. And it's analogous to what we see in classical Greece, where you have the city-states of Athens and Sparta. Now, what's particularly interesting is what's going on around Lake Texcoco in the 14th century. In 1325, you have the city of Tenochtitlan form on this island in Lake Texcoco. And initially, Tenochtitlan is one of the weaker city-states around Lake Texcoco. You see many of these city-states, some of the stronger ones. You have Texcoco right here. And in particular, you have Azcapotzalco. But as we fast forward roughly 100 years, you get to a situation where Azcapotzalco falls into a civil war. Their ruler dies, and there's a succession battle. And the various city-states around Lake Texcoco take sides. What eventually happens is Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan form what is known as a triple alliance, or the triple alliance, and are able to conquer the Azcapotzalco. And so in conquering the Azcapotzalco, what you have forming is known as the Aztec Empire. Now, it starts as an alliance between these three city-states and other city-states in the area, but over time, Tenochtitlan, which is sometimes referred to as Mexico Tenochtitlan, because it is a city-state of the Mexico people, and this is where the name Mexico or Mexico actually comes from. Now, even though it's an alliance, over time, Tenochtitlan essentially becomes the capital of this alliance, or the capital of this Aztec Empire, which continues on for roughly 100 years until 1521, when it is defeated by Hernando Cortés. Now, the story of how Hernando Cortés is able to conquer this empire is fascinating, and I'm not going to be able to go into all of the details in this video. But needless to say, he's able to convince several hundred conquistadors to come and try to conquer the empire. And he's able to do so by recruiting tens of thousands, some estimates I've seen are 100,000 soldiers from neighboring city-states who had issues with the Mexico or with the Aztec Empire. And so he's eventually able to take over the famed city of Tenochtitlan. And it's really important to recognize how advanced they were at the time. You see these causeways, these bridges leading into the island. They had a fairly advanced dam system to collect fresh water from the rain while also to control flooding. In fact, a lot of that was destroyed when the conquistadors came, and Mexico City, which eventually gets founded over this lake, is going to have issues with flooding for some time in the future. In fact, the Spanish, in order to control the flooding, end up draining this lake, and is where Mexico City forms. But the big takeaway here is, near the end of the Aztec civilization, as we get to the 100 years before the conquistadors arrive, you have this empire form This empire, which starts as an alliance of city-states, but eventually becomes a tributary empire. Unlike the neighboring Mayans, which were on the Yucatan Peninsula, on this map they would be in this region right over here, the neighboring Mayans were autonomous city-states. Some might have had more power, more influence at different times, but the Aztec tributary state means the other city-states are paying tribute to Tenochtitlan. They are paying revenue, they're paying service to what essentially is the capital or the seat of that empire until it is conquered by the Spanish and remember, the Spanish are able to do this with several hundred conquistadors with the help of neighboring city-states.
And this comes from a book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. And I spoke about this in one of my last uploads. But this was written by this guy here, Ignatius Donnelly. He lived in the 1800s, and he wrote the book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, in 1882. A little bit about Ignatius Donnelly. He was a politician from Minnesota. He served in the state senate and later as lieutenant governor. Later he served in the U.S. House of Representatives. And he even had talks with the president back then at that time about finding Atlantis. And remember, this comes at a time around the Civil War when the first submersibles were being invented. And the president, of course, at that time was Abraham Lincoln. I thought that was always fascinating. But this comes from the chapter on North American flood myths. And I am just going to read this and then talk about this just briefly, and I'll let my subscribers fill in the comment section their thoughts on this. And it says, and I will leave this link below, in 1836, C.S. Raffines published in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a work called The American Nations, in which he gives the historical songs or chants of the Lenape, or Delaware Indians, the tribe that originally dwelt along the Delaware River. After describing a time when there was nothing but seawater on top of the land, and the creation of the sun, moon, stars, earth, and man, the legend depicts the Golden Age and the fall in these words. All were willingly pleased, all were easy thinking, and all were well happified. But after a while a snake priest, Powoko, brings on earth secretly the snake worship, in Atako, of the god of snakes, Wakan. And there came wickedness, crime, and unhappiness, and bad weather was coming, distemper was coming, with death was coming. And all this happened very long ago at the first land, Netamaki, beyond the great ocean, Kitiaku. Then follows the song of the flood. There was long ago a powerful snake, Maskanako, when the men had become bad beings, Makawini. This strong snake had become the foe of the Jinns, and they became troubled, hating each other. Both were fighting, both were spoiling, both were never peaceful, and they were fighting, least man, Matapui, with dead keeper Nihawalowit, and the strong snake readily resolved to destroy or fight the beings or the men. The dark snake he brought, the monster he brought, snake rushing water he brought. Much water is rushing, much go to hills, much penetrate, much destroying. Meanwhile, at Tula, at that island, Nanabush, the great hare Nana, becomes the ancestor of beings and men. Being born creeping, he is ready to move and dwell at Tula. The beings and men all go forth from the flood, creeping in shallow water or swimming afloat, asking which is the way to the turtleback, Tulipin. But there are many monsters in the way, and some men were devoured by them. But the daughter of the spirit helped them in a boat, saying, Come, come. They were coming and were helped. The name of the boat, or raft, is Moko. Now, there's a lot to go over here, but I'm just going to try to do this as briefly and as efficiently as I can, and then I'll leave it up to my subs to fill in the rest in the comment section with what they think about this. But this writing in the top paragraph reminds me of different cultures from around the world when they describe times a way, way long time ago. And of course, the flood, that is common in every culture. And I think the big flood, the great flood, happened around 9600 BC, give or take 100 years. And then that's followed with the creation of the sun, moon, stars, earth, and man. But it talks about a golden age, And of course, that is reminiscent to other cultures, such as the Egyptians, describing a time which they call Zep-Tepi, in the Golden Age. And then it talks about the fall. And of course, that can be associated with the tall tales of the fallen angels coming from a time after the flood. And then it brings up the snake priest, Powoko, who brings on earth secretly the snake worship. And brings on earth would have been a description of their known world, this tribe. So is Powoko, who brings on earth secretly the snake worship, is he the snake priest, leader of a culture that built serpent effigies all over the United States? Nobody knows who built these, but here we have a tribe of coming from the eastern United States that describes a snake priest who brought snake worship all over their known world. I think that is a fascinating possibility, and it seems to blame the snake culture and the snake priests for a flood, and it seems to symbolize the flood in the form of a snake. And is this just people writing about a culture coming in and taking over, and they associate wickedness and bad things and disasters to these people? That is a pretty common writing, but I think that is a pretty common writing coming from ancient cultures who use natural disasters as kind of, in a moralistic or a religious tone. But I think the most fascinating thing here is this, the mention of Tula. At that island, Nanabush, the great hare, swims to the great turtleback, and it's a story of their creation, of their current world. Let's go over to Google Earth. This green area here would have been an ancient lake, and we are going to zoom into Tula here. This isn't a place of myth or legend. This is an actual place in Mexico. And this is associated with the Toltecs, and I believe they inherited a lot of their knowledge from the Mayans. But this place just looks special. Here we are down on Street View. A look around Tula, which is built on top of a mound that, if there was an ancient lake here, would have looked like a turtleback in ancient times. And it is written about coming from a tribe of Indians in the United States. People say there is no connection between ancient United States tribes and Mesoamerica. Well, here is a tribe coming from the eastern United States that speaks of Tula. And this place, I'm telling you, it just looks special, and I think it looks really cool and unique. So I think it's fascinating that it's written about in the current creation stories of Native Americans coming from the eastern United States that were documented. These stories were documented about 200 years ago. I think that is fascinating. And here is a good look as I pull out exactly where Tula is. And once again, this thing is just a mound that, if this was an ancient lake, it would have looked like a turtle's back. And I've talked about pictographs and things such as Monk's Mound, the Great Pyramid in Illinois, that I think is in representation of a turtle. Ancient tribes from the United States, we're talking about a place in Mesoamerica and their legendary tales.
have destroyed one of the country's largest ancient Mayan pyramids in order to extract materials for road fill, archaeologists in the Central American country reported. According to local media, the sloping sides of the 2,300-year-old pyramid at the No Mul complex near the northern town of Anahuac, close to the Mexican border, were bulldozed away. A local construction company is under investigation for destroying the pyramid for gravel. Archaeologist Alan Moore told media the damage to the once majestic pyramid was worse than expected.
I was hoping that when I was driving up from the main San Juan road that it would not be this one, but when the closer I got, I just couldn't believe and seeing all the trucks and all the stuff. But this is an incredible destruction.
With just the core of the ancient structure remaining, the pyramid's destruction has shocked experts in Belize.
This is one of the worst that I have seen in my entire 25 years of archaeology in Belize.
Standing at 100 feet tall, the pyramid was once a ceremonial ground for the ancient Maya. Made of hand-cut limestone bricks, material extracted from the pyramid is highly prized among local contractors building roads.
The structure, the Hmong, would give them a sort of mixture of that rubble and that type of material they're looking for. I know that the Ministry of Works always complain that it makes good road fill.
Belizean authorities detected the destruction of the pyramid last week and have frozen construction activity at the site. Although sitting on private land, pre-Hispanic ruins are protected under the law. Archaeologists have called for assistance to help preserve what little remains of the pyramid at No Mul, one of only 4 major Mayan sites in all of northern Belize from the pre-classic era.
We applaud whoever can help us. We try. It's our heritage, you know. We all have to chip in. And when things like this happen, it affects all of us.
No Mul, or Big Hill in ancient Maya, is spread over an area of about 12 square miles and is estimated to have been inhabited by some 40,000 people between 500 and 250 BC. The Maya were among the great ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica, building cities with elaborate ceremonial centers and soaring stone pyramids across the region in modern-day Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador.